Formatting spreadsheets. In this exercise, we'll be learning about different formatting skills. We'll be learning how to format cells and tables, how to format different values, how to format text, and how to format the page layout. Now, formatting may seem tedious, but the polish and professionalism of your work makes a direct impact on how people perceive you and the quality of your work. If you've taken the time to polish the format of your work, your audience will likely assume that the content within was also created with the same time and effort. The opposite, however, is also true. Let's take a look at how to format data in an Excel spreadsheet. Now, keep in mind that the formats you'll see in this exercise are the ones used in many of the MIS and QBA courses in the College of Business. The requirements may be different where you're an intern or maybe where you have a full-time position. But the important thing is that you have the skills to conform to whatever those requirements are and the ability to create a polished and professional deliverable. If it's not already open, go ahead and open the Formatting tab of your Prep 1 start file. As you can see here, you have two tables, well, what will be tables on the left, and two example tables on the right. The goal is to make the tables on the left look as close as possible to the tables on the right. So to get started, I'm going to select the entire table on the top, which spans from A19 down to C25, and I'm going to add borders. And I'm going to add all borders that are all around. So if you click the drop-down arrow next to borders, you can choose all borders. Next, you can see that the heading spans all across the top of the table. So I'm going to highlight A, B, and C19 and choose Merge and Center, which merges all of those cells together and center lines the text within. While we're working on alignment, in our class, we want the content in tables to be center aligned, except if you have text in the left-handmost column because it just looks better to have that left aligned rather than center aligned. So I'm going to center align the content over here because I do have text on the left-hand side in this table. And I'm simply going to choose the center alignment here, and then you can also middle align, which centers vertically. So you center align horizontally and you can center align vertically. With the content all aligned to make it look nice and easily read, let's add some color. In our class, the main headers or the titles for a table are going to be in a dark green color with white bold font. So I'm going to click the drop-down arrow next to the fill color. And in this case, I don't want just any random color. I want a very specific color. So I'm going to click on More Colors. And for Windows users, you see this big hexagon of colors. The one in the very, very left is a very dark green color. That's the color we want. If you're a Mac user, you're going to need to click in the color slider option and use the sliders or match the hex color number as shown in the images in the top right corner of your sheet. But since I have mine, I'll press OK. And well, now it's really hard to read the text, but we'll get back to that in a moment. Let's go ahead and select the column headers. And again, I'm going to choose a fill color, pick a different color. And again, for Windows users, it's going to be this second little hexagon in right next to the dark green color. And Mac users, again, will use the sliders or choose the hex color number to match the correct green. Now, all of this text we want to be white and bold, so I'm going to do it all at the same time by highlighting it. And next to the text color, changing it to white and choosing bold. Now you could also choose Control or Command B to bold that if you want. Alright, it's looking pretty close. Let's see, the one thing we haven't changed so far are the decimal places. So I'm going to highlight the cells that I want to all have the same number of decimal places, in this case 1, and some of them are okay, but others not so much. You can either choose increase or decrease decimal, and the first thing that does is takes all of the highlighted numbers and gives them the same amount of decimal places. It may or may not be the number of decimal places you want, but at least they'll all be even. So let's increase the decimal places, and in this case it gave me 2 for all of them. So now I'm going to decrease the number of decimal places by 1, and now they all have that same 1 decimal place. The last thing we need to do in here, you can see at the bottom the totals are highlighted in gray, and normally the gray signifies something that you will have to fill in, but of course all of these numbers are already in here, so we don't have to worry about that. I'm going to highlight these, and again it's a cell fill color, and this one is the second fill down, the second gray down. Simply click on it and now we've done a pretty good job of making this table look like the one on the right. The bottom number formats table is about formatting values mostly, but before we do that, I want to show you one really cool feature in Excel. The header across the top from A28 to B28, that's where we want it to go, we want to merge and center that, and we want to make it dark green with white font that's bold, just like we did with the top heading on the first table. But wouldn't it be great if we could just copy that formatting and then apply it down here? We can. So to do that, I'm going to click back up on the formatting that I want to copy and click the little paintbrush up here called the Format Painter. And this literally sucks up the formatting, and then I can click and drag to select both of these cells and let go, and it automatically applied all the formatting that I just sucked up with that painter. So I didn't have to go in and do all of those individual steps. I could instead just do it all at once. Now while I'm formatting this table, I'm going to go ahead and put the borders on too. So I'm going to select the whole table, put all borders, and that just makes it a lot easier to read and see where each number sits inside the table. The table is telling us exactly how it wants us to format the numbers, as you can see. So for the first one, we want 4 decimal places. So I'm simply going to go up to the number area of the home ribbon and choose increase decimal places 4 times. The second one we want to be formatted as currency, and by default the numbers are general, as you can see up in the number area. I'm going to click the drop down arrow next to that and choose currency. And currency will give us a dollar sign right next to the number with 2 decimal places. So we're already set on that one. Accounting style is a little bit different. It still formats with the dollar sign, and you can get to it 2 ways. You can either click the dollar sign icon up top, which gives us accounting, or you can click drop down arrow next to general and choose accounting this way. Accounting differs from currency in that the dollar sign is left justified and the number is right justified, but it still also has 2 decimal places. In this class, we will usually use accounting style. The fourth one down is general, and we're already there, so we're just going to leave it. The fifth one down is comma style, and comma style is really important because when you put a comma inside a number that's higher than 1,000, it makes it much easier because by nature your eye is looking for the commas between those 1,000 separators. And we're going to decrease the decimal place twice to have 0 decimal places. And now for something a little bit different, you can also format numbers as dates. I'm going to click the drop down arrow and choose short date for this one, and do the same thing at the bottom but choose long date for the last one. Uh-oh, what happened? If you see a bunch of pound signs in a spreadsheet, don't panic. It simply means that the column is not wide enough to show all of the data in that particular cell. No big deal. We're just going to make the cell a little bit wider. And you can't actually just change one cell, you have to change an entire column or an entire row. So in this case, we want to change the column width. To do that, take your mouse in between the end of that column and the beginning of the next column up by the headers, and click and drag, and you can make your columns as wide or as narrow as you want. Now of course Excel has a great feature that if you take your arrow in between those headers and you double click, it will automatically make the width of the column fit the widest cell within that column. I'm going to do the same thing over for columns A, or for column A, which is in between column A and B, and double click so I can see all of the text in column A. I'll do the same thing with columns C and D, and you can actually do this for more than one at a time. You could highlight multiple columns, and if you double click, it will automatically fit them to the width of the cells. The last thing to do to this table is to select all of the cells in the second part of the table, the second column, and center align these. And what I want to show you with that is that not all of the numbers center align. The accounting style automatically left justifies the dollar sign, as we said before, but it keeps the text right justified, as does comma style. So if you add comma style to something, automatically your values are going to be justified to the right. We talked about why formatting a spreadsheet is important, but something to think about before you share or send your file to someone is the way the sheet would look if and when it gets printed. You want to make sure that when printed, your content fits well on the page and that bits of content don't dangle onto extra pages. For example, it would be super annoying to have all of your table on one sheet and just the total to print on a separate page. So how do you prevent that from happening? It's actually quite easy. If you go to the Page Layout ribbon you can click the little tiny arrow in the bottom right corner of the page setup section, and this gives you a whole bunch of options for formatting your page. For example, we have a lot of content that's very wide on our Excel spreadsheet, so I'm going to choose to change my orientation from portrait to landscape or vertical to horizontal. Likewise, when I print, I actually want it all to fit onto one sheet. I don't have a ton of content, and maybe yours is 2 sheets wide, and it's okay to have 2 sheets. You just want to make sure that you fit it so there isn't little bits of stuff dangling onto separate pages. So for mine, I know that I can fit it pretty well to one page, and I'll show you how to check that in a minute. Additionally, if you do have multiple pages, or especially if you have multiple pages, a header and footer make it really easy to know which page goes first, second, third, and so on. So I'm going to create a custom header, and I'm going to center align this, and I want it to say QBA formatting standards. Press OK, and the header will end up at the top of all of my sheets. I'm also going to add a footer, and my footer I want to just be the page numbers centered at the bottom. So I can insert the page numbers, and you can see it's at the center at the bottom. And now how do we actually see that this all looks nice? Well, I'm going to choose Print Preview, and it actually now shows you that all of the content fits on one page. It's horizontally oriented, and you can see the header at the top and the page number at the bottom. So again, just a minute and a half of effort can make a really big difference in the polish and professionalism, not only of the sheet itself, but when someone goes to print it out. So going that tiny extra mile to make a big impact.